were these beliefs that the Church of Rome were so shocked by that they had to excommunicate Marcion? Marcion proposed that there were two gods, an evil God who created the material world and a good God who sent Jesus to save us. Marcion believed that this evil God was the God of the Old Testament. In fact, Marcion looked down at the Old Testament God and couldn't see how the God of the New Testament, who he saw as loving, was the same being as the Old Testament, who is evil. As you can see, his beliefs fall under more of a Gnostic set of thinking.
On his arrival, he generously donated 200,000 sesterces to the fledgling Christian church, and then he set to work writing. 5 years later, he unveiled two of the most compelling, distinctive, and revolutionary literary productions the church had ever encountered, and they were so dangerous that they were to change the course of Christian history. But like the Gospel of the Ebionites, all physical traces of these controversial books have disappeared. The only evidence we have for their existence is once again in the writings of those who oppose them. A measure of Marcion's significance is that whilst the Ebionites are mentioned only 8 times in 3 books, Marcion's writings are the subject of great tomes. His ideas were so radical that one early church father, Tertullian, devoted 5 volumes to attacking Marcion and his ideas. So what was it about his beliefs that caused such consternation? Well, unlike the Ebionites, rather than embracing the Jewishness of Christianity, Marcion utterly rejected it. And it was the radical form that this rejection took which caused such a storm. Marcion began a careful comparison of the Old Testament with the scriptures about Jesus, and what he discovered led him to a shocking conclusion. He came to believe that the gospel brought by Jesus was the good news of deliverance, involving love, forgiveness, and redemption. And by way of contrast, that the Jewish law was the bad news which had made the gospel necessary in the first place. And he saw that this Jewish law involved strict commandments, judgment, and death. The law was given to the Jews. The gospel of life was given by Christ. But once Marcion became committed to this idea, he found himself facing a profound philosophical problem. The God of the Jews was wrathful, vengeant, judgmental. How could this God also be the loving and merciful God of Jesus Christ? The God of the Old Testament was the creator of Genesis, who'd called the Jews to be his people and given them his law. This God also insisted that his people should be penalized should they fail to keep that law. And since everyone transgressed in some way, they would all be punished. He wasn't an evil deity, but he was scrupulously just. Marcion then concluded that the God of Jesus came into the world in order to save people from this vengeful God of the Jews. He nicknamed this God, God the Stranger, because he'd been previously unknown to us, and that Jesus came unexpectedly and did more than anyone could have hoped for. He paid the penalty for other people's sins to save us from this vengeful Old Testament deity.
A good example might be where Jesus heals a leper in St. Luke's Gospel. He reaches out and touches the leper, and heals him. And at once Marcion contrasts this act of love with what it says in the book of Leviticus, that a leper is unclean and must never be touched.
Can you not have a Christianity that is completely distant from the Old Testament?
Oh, Marcion was putting his finger on a very tense problem for Christianity, because of course in all sorts of ways Jesus himself was disagreeing with aspects of Jewish law, and early Christianity had to free itself from the close observance of Jewish law if it was going to become a great world religion. It's just that Marcion's answer is so radical, and not only do the Old Testament and New Testament have nothing in common, but there are actually two different gods responsible for them. That's such a radical statement that it caused shockwaves in early Christian communities.
Shalom, Barakatah. This is High Priest Kahalal of the Law, also known as Calvin Israel, back with another video lesson, giving all praises, honor, power, glory, dominion, majesty, reverence, blessings, worship, love, and admiration to the Most High, Yahweh, and Yahweh only. Double honors, triple honors to Yahweh and Yahweh only. No Bahashim. Understand that? All right. Now, the title of today's video lesson is Marcion and his fictional character, Paul the Apostle. Okay. Now, Paul the Apostle is a fictional character just like JC. But Paul the Apostle is slightly different from JC because Paul the Apostle is slightly fictional. He's not all the way fictional because Paul the Apostle is partly based on the life of the man Marcion. Okay. Paul the Apostle is Marcion's pen name. Marcion and Paul the Apostle are parallel to each other. They have the same characteristics. They do the same things. Marcion is a Roman citizen. Paul is a Roman citizen. Marcion hates Torah. Paul hates Torah. Right? Marcion was the head of many churches. Paul was the head of many churches. Marcion wrote letters and epistles to these many churches. Paul the Apostle wrote letters and epistles to his many churches. They're parallel because Paul the Apostle is slightly based on Marcion's life. Right? Marcion came to Rome, saw what the Romans were doing, and that set him on fire. He started writing all of these epistles, trying to build off of the gospel, trying to create the New Testament because he hated the God of Israel so much. He despised the Torah just that much. He wanted in on this. He wanted in on putting an end to Torah. Right? So he got to work and started to really go in and expose what the Romans were really doing. You see, and Paul's letters, without being edited, are so extreme and radical. And so basically unhidden, right? It is so unhidden. It is so plain, right? He says he used plainness of speech, that it is exposing the Romans' hand way too much. Okay? You going exposing our hand too much. Yeah, Marcion, this is what it's about, but it's a secret. Right? It's subliminal diss to the God of Israel and the Israelites. It's supposed to be kept subliminal, and it's supposed to be kept a secret. But what Marcion was doing with his writings as Paul, he was exposing too much that JC's father is not the God of Israel. Okay. So the Romans took Marcion's letters, Paul's letters, and they edited them, right? To make them less exposed. Okay? Because if they did not, then Marcion would cause the Romans to lose Israel. And they don't want to lose Israel. Their goal is to be the number one religion in the world, the most powerful religion in the world. Right? They want to be the biggest religion. They need Israel to do that. They want everyone to serve them through their fictional character JC in Christianity by their New Testament. They can't do that if they expose that JC's father is just an invention of Rome, and if we make it seem like it's actual, and factual, if we make it seem like there's an actual grandfather God over the God of Israel that sent JC, then we lose Israel. We lose the Israelites. We can't lose the Israelites, because if we lose the Israelites, they go back to their God and they are empowered and they're going to overpower us. No, we need to keep the Israelites and not lose focus of our main goal here, so that the Israelites stay weakened because they stay in idolatry. And also, if we lose Israel, we lose their royal priesthood. Yeah, all of the revenue, all of the tithing money. We can't let Israel go. No, we have to keep them deceived. And here is Marcion exposing our hand. Here's Marcion exposing our hand a little too much. He must be stopped. Right? So they edited his letters. We can't find Marcion's letters. All of these letters that's been distributed and manufactured, they've been copied and passed around. But we can't find any of Marcion's letters. Is that because Marcion's letters is actually Paul's letters? We can't find Marcion's letters because he went under a pen name. His pen name is Paul the Apostle. So, in actuality, in reality, we have Marcion's letters. They are Paul's letters, edited by the church fathers. But yet, they watered it down. They diluted it. They diluted Paul's letters. But yet, even with the edited on it, even with the dilution on it, it is still extreme, bold, and blasphemous. His sayings, his writings, his twisting of scriptures, his ideology, his mindset, it's all wicked and evil. This is a wicked plot, a shady scheme of the Romans to create the New Testament. And Marcion, who was actually Paul, he published the first New Testament with only one gospel in all of his writings. 10 letters of Paul. All right. So, who is Paul? Who do the New Testament say Paul is? Who does the New Testament say Paul is? Let's go. Romans 11, verse 1. Let's see. Who does the New Testament say Paul is? Right? I say then, has God cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. Romans 11, verse 1. I say then, has God cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. Okay. So the New Testament is saying that Paul is an Israelite from the tribe of Benjamin. Now, why Benjamin? Why did they choose to make their fictional character from the tribe of Benjamin? It's typology. That's the reason. Because before Paul was Paul, he was Saul, someone that persecuted the church. He's a type of Saul the Benjamite in the so-called Old Testament that persecuted King David. Okay, so Saul in the New Testament is typology on Saul the Benjamite in the Old Testament. Because Saul in the New Testament, he started off being a persecutor of JC and the Christians. He opposed them. He persecuted the church, as the fairy tale gospel story goes. All right, so that's why he's put as from the tribe of Benjamin, because he's typology on Saul, right? In that instant, that Saul was persecuting King David in the Old Testament. Now in the New Testament, Saul is persecuting JC. Then the typology switches when Paul is converted to Christianity. When Paul is converted as a Christian, and now his name is no longer Saul, but it's Paul, the apostle, the Christian. Now the typology switches. He's no longer Saul the Benjamite. He's no longer something like Saul. He's no longer a type of Saul. Typology, right? He's no longer a type of Saul the Benjamite. Now that he's converted to be Paul the Apostle, now he's a type of King David. King David, a man after God's own heart. And now Paul, now a believer in JC, is a man after JC's own heart. So the typology switches now. Now he becomes like a type of King David to be on fire for JC. Just like King David was on fire for the Most High God Yahweh. Now we have Paul being on fire for JC. Okay, it's typology. Right? So that's why they say he's from the tribe of Benjamin. But is he really from the tribe of Benjamin? No. Let's go here. Let's go to Acts. We're going to go to Acts chapter 23, verse 6. Acts chapter 23, verse 6. But when Paul perceived that one part was Sadducees and the other Pharisees, he cried out in the council, Men and brethren, I am a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee. I am a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee. Of hope and resurrection of the dead, I am called in question. So he says that he is a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee. And according to Christian Light One West doctrine, you are who your father is. So let's see who are the Pharisees. Okay. Let's see it. Let's see who's the Pharisees. So let's go to Matthew chapter 23. Matthew chapter 23. And we will go to verse 2. Matthew chapter 23, verse 2, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. So what was Moses' seat? Levi. So the Pharisees are Levites. Let's go and see what was Moses' seat. You know, and whoever's sitting in Moses' seat, who are they? What are they? So we're going to go to 1 Chronicles to see what's Moses' seat. What's his tribe? What's his position? 1 Chronicles chapter 23, verse 14. Have y'all noticed that? Acts was chapter 23. Matthew is chapter 23. And now 1 Chronicles is chapter 23. 1 Chronicles chapter 23, verse 14. Now concerning Moses, the man of God, his sons were named of the tribe of Levi. So the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Moses is a Levite. The Pharisees are Levites. Moses' seat is the tribe of Levi. So the Pharisees are in Moses' seat. They are Levites. They are from the tribe of Levi. So if Paul's father was a Pharisee, then his father would be from the tribe of Levi, which would mean that Paul is actually from the tribe of Levi, right? But of course he's not, because over here, he's being exposed as an Edomite. The actual New Testament writer, Marcion, is an Edomite. He exposed his hand right here. Salute Herodian, my kinsman. Salute Herodian, my kinsman. Now, Herodian is not a common name. It's a name, a distinctive name to a royal Edomite family, right? Salute Herodian. The Herodians come from King Herod, the Herodian dynasty, a dynasty of Edomites. And Paul right here is saying, salute Herodian, my kinsman. The Herodians were rich, powerful, and established during the time of Marcion Paul. It says, salute Herodian, my kinsman. Kinsman means blood relative. So, Paul, Marcion, is blood relatives to the Herodians. There you go. Right? Now, this New Testament is wicked. We see that the plot is a scheme, an evil, wicked scheme to deceive not only the Israelites, but the whole world. A wicked, shady scheme. A wicked, shady scheme to overthrow Torah, right? To abolish the law. Now let's get off into some of these verses we find in the New Testament in Paul's writings, right? Let's get off into some of these verses in the New Testament where we see Paul's hate for the Torah. Yeah, we're looking for Paul's hate for the Torah and his disagreement with Torah. Right? Because he shares that with Marcion because he is Marcion. They both hate Torah. They have a strong hate for Torah. Now, let's get off into it. Let's go to Acts 13 and let's go to verse 6. And when they had gone through the isles unto Paphos, they found a certain sorcerer, a false prophet, a Jew, whose name was Bar-Jesus. Oh. Okay. Which was with the deputy of the country of Sergius Paulus, a prudent man, who called for Barnabas and Saul. Saul, right? Paul is being called Saul here. And desired to hear the word of God. Okay, so Bar-Jesus is this Jew that they are calling a sorcerer. He is with Sergius Paulus, who is the deputy of the country. What country? Cyprus. Because Paphos is a city in Cyprus. Okay. But Elmas, the sorcerer, for so is his name by interpretation, withstood them, seeking to turn away the deputy from the faith. But Elmas, the sorcerer, so they are calling him Elmas. It's a word in a different language that means sorcerer. Now, it's not Hebrew. It's not Greek. And in Arabic, Elmas means wise. So, we know that they are using a word from another language to call him a sorcerer, but we don't know what language that is. Okay? But still in all, they are calling this Jew a sorcerer. Why? All right, because he tried to stop this man he was with, the deputy, from hearing the gospel. So he's keeping Torah. He's like, nah, man, Deuteronomy 13. Nah, y'all can't be spreading no gospel. You can't even be listening to that stuff, man. Nah, Exodus 20:3, man. Now we shouldn't have no God before the Most High God, Yahweh. And he's trying to warn the deputy. But you got Paul calling him a sorcerer. The New Testament calling this Jew a sorcerer that is trying to prevent the deputy from hearing the gospel. Then Saul, who also is called Paul, filled with the Holy Ghost, set his eyes on him and said, "Oh, full of all subtlety and all mischief, thou child of the devil, thou enemy of all righteousness, will thou not cease to pervert the right ways of the Lord? And now, behold, the hand of the Lord is upon you, and you shall be blind, not seeing the sun for a season." And immediately there fell on him a mist and a darkness, and he went about seeking some to lead him by the hand. Wow. He's a sorcerer, and then you just perform magic on him. You just perform some sorcery on him. But what we see here, we see a Jew being called a sorcerer for trying to stop a man from hearing the gospel. Right? And Paphos is not in Israel. It's in Cyprus. So no Christian lights. You can't say it's a Gentile being called a Jew because he lives in Israel. No. He's actually being called a Jew because he believes in serving Yahweh only. So they're saying to serve Yahweh only is sorcery. Understand that. And that's the spirit that the New Testament gives. It gives an idolatry spirit. It gives a blasphemous spirit. It gives a rebellious spirit that will have you going off and saying stuff like that. Remember when one of those GMS members called me a Yahweh only demon? Yeah. This book is a book of witchcraft, man. It's going to have you in sorcery. Right? So, just to let y'all know who the New Testament calls Jews, right? When the New Testament calls you a Jew, it means you're keeping Torah. Whether you're a Gentile or not. If you're being called a Jew in the New Testament, it's because you're keeping Torah. Right here confirms that. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 20. And unto the Jews I became as a Jew, that I might gain the Jews. To them that are under the law, as under the law, that I might gain them that are under the law. Okay, so when the New Testament says Jew, it means someone that is keeping Torah under the law. Torah law. Right? So we see that a man, a Jew, serving the Most High God Yahweh only, refusing to hear the gospel and preventing someone else from hearing the gospel, he is called a sorcerer. So we are sorcerers because we serve the Most High Yahweh only in the New Testament. Right? Leave it up to the New Testament to say we are sorcerers because we serve the Most High God Yahweh only. And that's the spirit and vibration that these One West Christian lights are coming with. Understand that? Yeah. That's the spirit and vibration that these Christian lights are coming with. So, once again, 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 20. And unto the Jews I became as a Jew, that I might gain the Jews, to them that are under the law, as under the law, that I might gain them that are under the law. So, Jews in the New Testament are people that keep Torah. Okay? So, someone that keeps Torah is a sorcerer. Yeah, this is the blasphemy. And this is the hate that Paul, Marcion, has for Torah. So now we're going to go to 2 Corinthians chapter 3, and we're going to see some more of this hate. Right? They like Paul. Yeah, the Roman Christians, they liked it. Paul, they just didn't want him to be so noticeable. They edited his writings. Right? So this is an edited version of Marcion's letter, because Paul is Marcion's pen name. Okay. So 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 11. For if that which is done away with, Salakia, from the top, 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 11. For if that which is done away, the law is done away. Where do you hear that from? Christianity. The law is done away with. Man, where do you get that from? Right here. Yeah, in the New Testament. From Paul's writings, yeah. 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 11. For if that which is done away. So, he's saying that the Old Testament is done away with. Well, where did they get that in church? Why are we taught that in church? That the law is done away with? And Christianity just pulled that out their ass, man. No. They pulled it out of the New Testament. So stop it, man. Bishop Nathaniel, stop it, man. Bashing Christianity when you should be bashing the New Testament, man. Just stop it, man. You're an idiot. And all of you Christian lights are idiots. Dollar General Johanna, you're an idiot, man. You ain't got no real wisdom. Right? You're being bamboozled by the New Testament, man. Yeah. WFI, Naquana, Watchman for Israel, Naquana. You ain't got no real wisdom, man. You ain't got no real knowledge. Right? You're a dumbass. Y'all some straight idiots. Some morons. Being deceived by Marcion. For if that which is done away was glorious. Much more that which remaineth is glorious. Okay. Seeing then that we have such hope, we use great plainness of speech. And he's like, man, so you see the personality of Paul and the personality of Marcion. They are not trying to hide their beliefs. But the church fathers are like, no, Marcion, you have to hide your belief. You have to hide the true meaning of the belief. You have to hide the belief from the Jews. Can't let them in completely on it. So we don't lose them and we don't lose their profitable priesthood. Seeing then that we have such hope, we use great plainness of speech, bold with their blasphemy. They don't care. And not as Moses. So Moses didn't use great plainness of speech. He says, man, we use great plainness of speech and not as Moses, which put a veil over his face, that the children of Israel could not steadfastly look to the end of that which is abolished. Oh, wait, that's blasphemy right there. So what, right? Verse 14. But their minds were blinded, for until this day remaineth the same veil untaking away in the reading of the Old Testament. So what is done away? The Old Testament. What is abolished? What is he talking about? The Old Testament. Okay. But their minds were blinded. For until this day remaineth the same veil untaken away in the reading of the Old Testament, which veil is done away in Christ. Right? So, it's not complicated. This is not complicated. He uses great plainness of speech. Right? The Old Testament leaves you blind. The New Testament is more glorious than the Old Testament that is done away with. Right? The only way you can understand the so-called Old Testament, Paul is saying, is if you have the spirit of JC and you believe in JC. All right? And not as Moses, which put a veil over his face, that the children of Israel could not steadfastly look to the end of that which is abolished. He made that up, man. Moses put a veil over his face because he was so close to God, talking to the Most High God, that his face was shining so bright. It's not so that the children of Israel couldn't see the end of the commandments. Like he's trying to deceive the children of Israel, and not as Moses, which put a veil over his face, that the children of Israel could not steadfastly look to the end of that which is abolished. Okay, so what he is saying is, Moses deceived the children of Israel. Moses deceived the Israelites by telling them to keep the commandments, because Moses knew that in the future it would be abolished. So he's saying that Moses deceived the Israelites and set them up for failure. And he hid that from them, that one day in the future, the commandments will be abolished and done away with. Right? And JC will bring in lawlessness from the Most High God, Yahweh. That's what this is saying here. This is wickedness. Lawlessness and wickedness. This is hate towards the Torah and the Most High God, Yahweh. Disrespect, dissing Moses. It's just disrespectful all the way around. So this is where you get it. The law is done away with. The Old Testament is abolished. All right, what's it say over here? Let's go to Ephesians chapter 2, verse 15. He's not trying to hide it, man. He said he used great plainness of speech. Right? It's not a subliminal diss with Paul. Now, with the other writers of the New Testament, it's subliminal disses. Paul Marcion was not with the subliminal disses. It's subliminal now because they had to go in and carefully edit his writings. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 15. Having abolished in his flesh the enmity, even the law of commandments. He only did away with the animal sacrifice. But wait a minute. This right here is saying something different. There's no scripture. There's no Greek scripture to back up your claims saying that he only did away with the sacrificial law. It's only about the law of sacrifice. Well, wait. Having abolished in his flesh the enmity, even the law of commandments, plural. So it's more than one law he's abolishing. Having abolished in his flesh the enmity, even the law of commandments. Do your dumbass know the difference between something that is plural and singular? Contained in ordinances. Plural, ordinances. Written law. Written laws. For to make in him of twain one new man, so making peace. He used great plainness of speech. Told you that the Hebrew scriptures is abolished. The Torah is abolished. He told you that. It's right here. Right? Only a dumbass cannot get that. Only a dumbass will want to try to attempt to twist that. Right? Only a dishonest man. You got a lot of dishonest men out here, man. A lot of these Christian lights are dishonest. And it's to their own destruction. Romans 8, verse 2. For the law of the Spirit of life in JC has made me free from the law of sin and death. The law of sin and death. For what the law could not do, in that it was weak through the flesh, God sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh. And for sin, condemned sin in the flesh. Do y'all get that? That's a precept. That's a precept on Ephesians 2:15. It just confirms it. That, yeah. Right? For the law of the Spirit of life in JC has made me free from the law of sin and death. So Torah law is sin and death. That's what he's saying. Right? Because right here he says, for what the law could not do, in that it was weak through the flesh, God sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh, and for sin, condemned sin in the flesh. So he condemned sin, and Paul is calling the Torah sin and death. And he is saying that when JC died, he killed the Torah right along with him. We're going to go get that again. He attached it to his flesh and killed it. Ephesians 2:15 again. Having abolished in his flesh the enmity, even the law of commandments contained in ordinances, for to make in him of twain one new man, so making peace, having abolished in his flesh. Back to Romans. For the law of the Spirit of life in JC has made me free. That's the law of liberty that pork eater was talking about. For the law of the Spirit of life in JC has made me free from the law of sin and death. So the Torah is sin and death. All right? And he says right here at the bottom of this verse, and for sin, condemned sin in the flesh. So we see in Ephesians, he's taking the commandments, right, in his flesh. And he's killing it with his flesh. And here we see that the Torah is being called sin and death. So JC is taking sin, which is the Torah, Paul is saying, in his flesh and killing it. Okay. Romans 7 verse 10. And the commandment which was ordained to life, I found to be unto death. So no one's lying here. I'm not lying. He's saying that the Torah is death. Sin and death. And the commandment which was ordained to life, I found to be unto death. Okay, let's see how true that is, though. Now let's see how a real prophet speaks about the law. Let's go to Baruch chapter 4, verse 1. And this is how a real prophet of the Most High God speaks about the laws and the commandments. This is the book of the commandments of God and the law that endureth forever. All they that keep it shall come to life, but such as leave it shall die. Yeah, now that's the truth right there. Yeah, Baruch. Hebrew scriptures. Yeah. This is the book of the commandments of God and the law that endureth forever. Exactly. The law that endureth forever is never going to be done away with. It's never going to be abolished. So that's just blasphemy that Marcion Paul is speaking in the New Testament. This is the book of the commandments of God, and the law that endureth forever. All they that keep it shall come to life, but such as leave it shall die. And you best believe that. Understand that? Yeah. So, these Christian lights are saying, nah, Paul is talking about the law of sacrifice. The law of sacrifice is done away with. But JC says, not one jot nor one tittle shall fall from the law until all be fulfilled. The law of sacrifice is bigger than a jot or a tittle. Like, right? So that could not be done away with. The law of sacrifice could not be done away with until all be fulfilled. So once all be fulfilled, that's when all the laws will be destroyed. Right? That's when the law will change or something, once all be fulfilled. And then he fulfilled his purpose when he died on the cross. So that's what the New Testament is saying to you. You see what I'm saying? They're trying to do away with the law. It's a wicked scheme from Rome. And we're coming back with a part 2. Because so much wicked blasphemy. It's so much wickedness steaming off of this fictional character that Marcion created. Paul the Apostle. It's so much we got to come back. It's going to be like a 4-part series. Maybe a 7. Because it's so much wickedness on Paul. As of yet, we really just mainly been focusing on JC. We ain't even touched on Paul yet. Oh, man. Yeah. But we had to get JC first, man. And we're going to keep on getting him. Because he's the lead fictional character in the New Testament. Right? He's the one that's being exalted as God. Paul is the one that is turning everyone away from the Torah and turning them to JC, to just believe on JC. And that's what JC says. The works of God is to believe on who he has sent. That's all you got to do is believe. Right? So this is blasphemy. The New Testament is blasphemy. Right? Repent. Come up out of idolatry and serve the Most High God, Yahweh, only. Right? Stay stumped down for Yahweh, stand tall in the law. Ababa Bar. Fall, Babylon, fall.